Hi, and welcome to the Digital House Party training for the New Normal campaign. My name is Denise Mena. I am the Communication Specialist and Digital Organizer for ACTIONN here in Reno, Nevada. And again, thank you for attending. In this training, you're going to learn everything that you need to be effective in your digital house party, as well as give you some tips and tricks on how to do this well and effectively. So this video is going to be a combination of me and my recording, plus an event that we held on Zoom where we did a digital house training, a digital house party training. And the reason that we're doing a combination is because we intended to just record the video from the actual event. And unfortunately, we had a lot of technical difficulties. So you're going to see a lot of back and forth, but I wanted to keep the event in this video because there's a lot of aspects from other people talking and from people from FOA in Action where they talk about these different emotional elements and these pieces that are necessary for an effective digital house party that I really think would be beneficial to you to know. So let's get started.
Everyone, thank you for joining us as we engage in a new normal digital house party training. My name is Shonda Johnson. I am an organizer with Faith Organizing Alliance, and I just want everyone to be aware we are recording, so if you could please stay on mute unless you are speaking, that would be greatly appreciated. Your presence in this meeting tonight means that you joined us last week for our new normal framework presentation, and you not only yourself want to be a part of helping build the beloved community, but you want your friends, family, and neighbors to help as well. Tonight's training is going to equip you with the tools that you'll need to lead your own digital house party, and will give you a chance to answer any questions that you might have before getting started. Look forward to the great training that we are going to be leading, and I'll hand it over to who's next.
Hi everyone, it's Aria again. So I'm just going to go over real quick what we're hoping to learn today in this training and what you should come out of this training knowing and being aware of. So it'll be really quick, but first we're going to be introducing the digital house party toolkit to all of you. So we'll make sure you get that link and go through with you what it looks like and how to use that as a tool for you in preparing your house parties. Once you have that toolkit, during this training, you'll learn how to prepare, execute, and follow up after house parties. So those three important things: how to prepare for a house party, how to hold a house party, and then what you need to be doing afterwards. You'll be learning how to moderate and create safe spaces for people in your community to talk about this training, how to prepare for a house party, how to execute a house party, and how to follow up for a house party. You'll also learn how to have discussions within these house parties with people in your community. I know that these conversations can often be really big and scary conversations to have. People don't like to talk about religion or politics, but we're going to hope to give you the tools to be able to have these conversations in a safe way, and a way that makes it so that everyone is able to talk about these issues in a way that makes them feel heard and listened to. And then finally, you'll be learning in this training about how to make an ask, how to ask your leaders to step up into being fully the leaders that they can be in creating this vision of the community. So I'll go ahead and throw it over to JD for the next part.
Thanks, Aria. Yeah, and so I am really excited for the digital house parties because I think it's key to us building momentum and the political power that we need to get our elected leaders to take the new normal serious and to start to change the decisions they make in terms of where they are investing resources, where they're making policies, and the ways that they can be divesting from those policies and resources and decisions they're making that are hurting our community. And that, I think, the first goal that I want us to think about when it comes to the digital house parties is really just to get as many people as possible familiar with this idea behind divesting and investing that we see in the new normal framework. And the thought behind this idea of divesting from mass incarceration, divesting from racist and violent policing, divesting from corporate tax breaks, so that we can invest in affordable housing, in public education, in the other things that are part of this framework, is so that we can connect the dots between all these different issues. Because if we've learned anything from COVID-19 in this really disruptive year that we're living through, is that we can't just do one issue at a time anymore. Now is time for a bigger conversation, and it's time for us to connect those dots and fight one bigger fight. So one of the goals out of the digital house party is for your friends and family to see themselves in that new framework, for them to say, yes, these are the things that are hurting me and that needs to end. Or these are the things that I and my loved ones need, and that's why I want to be moving with you in this framework as we move forward. So one of the goals is just to have people excited about the new normal and excited to be having conversations with other voters and with candidates about those priorities and principles that we find in the new normal. The other thing is to give folks an opportunity to start taking action right away. So as we'll go through in a little bit, there's going to be an opportunity for folks to register to vote in a house party, to pledge to vote if they haven't pledged to vote, and to complete the census. And we really believe that those are the three critical things right now at this point in August through September, heading into the election, to build momentum and to get people excited about voting come October, when the mail-in ballots go out, and all the way till November 3rd on election day. So we want people to be familiar with the new normal framework. We want them to see themselves in that framework. We want them to be able to take action right away, and then to be part of this movement with us throughout the rest of the fall. And right now, our goal with you all is to make sure that you feel confident in communicating about the new normal and confident in making that ask to your friends and families, so that they are getting engaged at a deeper level. So ultimately, the only way this is going to be successful, it has to be more than just action staff or FOA staff, or it can't just be a handful of people doing this work. It's really going to take a lot of folks deeply engaging with and owning this narrative, this idea behind the new normal, so that we can really shift the conversation. And the digital house parties are a really powerful tool in shifting that conversation. So I think if we can go into the rest of the training thinking about that's why we're doing this, that would be a really helpful way for us to engage with the material.
All right, let's start this training. Before we do, I do want to give you a few updates and then an overview of the training. So just so you all know, that for those of you who want to host a digital house party and want to see how a digital house party can be held, or just have some questions, because I know that this is a recording of the training, you can't ask questions, but we do have a space where you can, and that is on our Zoom parties. Every Tuesday at 5:30 p.m., we will be hosting FOA and Action Together. We'll be hosting a digital house party, and here you can attend, you can participate, and then also at the very end of it, we save half an hour so that you can ask questions. I think it's a really great idea for anybody who wants to do it, and I highly recommend it. Okay, so just going to give you a quick overview of what we're going to go through. This is the Digital House Party Toolkit. This entire webpage has everything that you need to be successful in your house party. It's going to show you how to prepare, what to do and what you need during your digital house party, and what to do after. Because yes, we can't just have a digital house party and then call it. We have to be intentional about the things that we're going to do after. I recommend to everybody that you really spend time on this webpage. Spend time reading through it a few times. Look at every document, look at every upload, check out all the information that's available here. Make sure that you're pretty familiar with this by the time that you have your digital house party, because I promise you it's going to help you be successful. All right, so looking at the preparing for your digital house party section of the webpage, yes, there are a few things here, and I want you to be really intentional about your house parties. These house parties are one of the most important things in this new normal campaign, because they're what's going to connect you to the community and bring people into this work. They're what's going to show people and help them to reimagine. During the journey within this campaign, something I've really come to realize is that a lot of people have a hard time reimagining. And that's because we have been given and fed a reality that we did not help create, that we did not consent to. And so having someone reimagine when this is all they've known can be difficult. So during these discussions, I'm going to offer a lot of information and also go back to the videos with my teammates from FO in Action, so that you can see and hear from them why these parts are so important and why the discussion and why the emotional parts of it are probably the most impactful parts of the digital house party. All right, so preparing for your digital house party. Step 1, read through the digital house party guidelines for information on how to prepare and plan for your house party. You're going to click this and it's going to take you to our house party guidelines. I'm going to walk you through this. This is going to help you prepare step by step to get your digital house party ready. So step 1, watch the digital house party training video. If you're watching this right now, congratulations, you can mark that off. Make sure you get to the end of it, but you can say you have finished this. Congratulations. Number 2, attend one of the digital house parties. Join one of our digital house parties that we host every Tuesday, and I already said this, and yes, it is not required that you attend a digital house party in order to host a digital house party, but I really recommend it. You're going to see how different people are going to host it. You're going to see how those conversations happen. Maybe give you some ideas for what you can do and how you can better host your party. Step number 3, set goals. Here's some things to think about when you're planning for your event. How many people do you want to attend? How many people from work? How many people from your family? How many people from your congregation or the class you attend? These are important, and I recommend you write them down. So because every different group of people or every person is going to require a different way to reach to get that goal and make sure that they've attended. So make sure that you want to write it down. How many signups do you want to collect? I'll show you in a little bit, but within your presentation, you're going to be providing your guests with a link that's going to have them sign up to do the digital house party outvote or a social media response team, just like you did. How many people do you want to sign up? Make that goal and then ask yourself, what do I have to do to get there? How many stories do you want presented? I recommend that you be really intentional about this because bringing in different stories or specific stories are really going to change the atmosphere and the type of discussions that you have within your digital house party. If you know someone who's been affected by COVID, you know someone who has been affected by these broken systems that are outlined within the New Normal campaign, talk to them and then ask them if they'd be willing to present their story at your digital house party. I think it's a good idea for a few reasons. 1, it lets the person know that you are going to be hosting this or talking about your story in a public space ahead of time so that they're emotionally prepared and they can also actually get prepared for it. It's also a really great way to confirm someone's attendance. If they've already said that they're going to come and present their story, you know that you've got them marked as confirmed. Step 4, make a plan. Some of these final details that you'll need to plan out. The digital space in which you want to host your party. Where do you want to do that? So we have Zoom information, and I'll talk to you a little bit about how you can either use your personal Zoom or ACTIONN Zoom account in order to do this, but that's not the only place where you can do this. There are a lot of different digital spaces. I recommend that you get creative. Finalize your guest list. Really say who you want to be there and then confirm them. All right, step 5, get the word out. How are you going to get the word out? How are you going to invite your guests? You could be creative. Use a Facebook event, email, invite, text. I know some of the really obvious ones are like, you could text, you can call, absolutely. But there are a lot of ways that you can get creative and show people how seriously you're taking it. Confirm your guest attendance. Now, I have been an organizer for about 5 years now. The best and number one thing that gets people to my events is confirming them either 24 hours before the event or even the day of. Why? Because people are busy. People have a lot of things going on. And sometimes they just forget. Digital parties or digital events are really difficult to get people to, especially because it's just so easy to forget about it. So make sure that you're confirming with people. Make sure you're talking to them regularly on the way to your digital house party. Okay. So heading back to the toolkit. All right. And step 2, you're going to download the New Normal framework. And this is what will come up when you click on here. So this is the New Normal framework. This is everything that we have been talking about. This is the document that outlines the framework and philosophy of the movement that we're doing. So go ahead and read through this a few times. I want to make sure that before you go into your digital house party, that you have read this a few times through, that you are familiar with the language in here, that you understand what we are investing and divesting from, and that you would feel really confident talking about it if you needed to. Make sure that you read through it a few times so that you know you are able to talk about this in a really effective and successful way. All right, and then after you read through that 3, 4, 5 times, and you feel really confident with it, you have some other things that you're going to want to prepare. So again, going back to that outreach plan, who and how will you invite people? Should you confirm their attendance before the event? All right, and then the Zoom meeting. This is something I'm going to bring up a few times throughout the training, because I really want you to know that this is an option for you. So yes, Zoom is the most used platform right now for digital meetings, but it is not the only one out there. So if you want to use a different one, please feel free. For those of you who would like to use Zoom, I'm going to let you know that you have 2 options. The first option is that you can create your own account, and then you can invite people using your own account. Now, I do want to let you know that if you have more than 3 people in your meeting, or I think it's actually if you have 3 people in your meeting, you will be restricted to a 45-minute meeting. If you want to have a longer meeting, and I recommend it because it will allow you to have more time for discussion and questions should they have it. If you would like a longer than 45-minute meeting, then reach out to Aria, our organizer at ACTIONN, because she's going to provide you with some information, or she will help you set up a Zoom meeting using ACTIONN's Zoom account so that you can go longer because we have a paid account. So if that is something that you need, please email Aria. You can email right here if you need a longer meeting. All right. During your digital house party, I have everything that you will need for your digital house party right here. First thing you're going to want to do is download your PowerPoint. And this is going to have the PowerPoint that you're going to go through. But more important than that is your digital house party talking points and scripts. This is a really, really important document that you're going to want to keep with you. I recommend either printing it or having it on your phone or some way, because you're just going to be sharing your screen. So it's going to be difficult maybe to have it on your screen at the moment, but have this ready and have it in front of you. So during this training, you're going to hear me use the terms talking points and script interchangeably. And that's because depending on your comfort level, you can use it as either. I really recommend that you spend a lot of time going through this document as well as the new normal framework and the PowerPoint so that you feel confident enough to use it as talking points. Why? Because as you're having discussions and as you're talking to people, it's going to be more fluid and genuine if it's coming from a place of your own words rather than just reading from a script. But if that is where you're more comfortable, please know that you can use it like this. Just a note for you all. There are parts in here that I would like you to use as scripts. It is anything marked in yellow like this. And that is because I didn't want you to memorize these certain parts. And I'll talk about why as we're going through, but just know that you can read these parts. So how to use it? Follow the talking points for each slide to make sure you explain all the topics correctly. After every slide, pause to breathe and allow for questions or discussion. Remember, the discussions that are going to happen within your digital house party are the most important part of this whole thing. Yes, the PowerPoint is fantastic. Yes, the content is great. Yes, the presentation, and as the presenter, you did an amazing job. But the discussions are really what's going to push the emotional element that is necessary to make people want to join the event or join the campaign. Ask your guests questions about how they feel about the topics being presented. We have created this presentation so that it only lasts 45 minutes, but please know that you do not have to stick to that. You want to, you absolutely can, but make sure that you're allowing for room for discussion. And sometimes trying to make sure that you stick to the time isn't always the most effective way. So this is going to be the first slide in the slideshow. This is where you're going to welcome them, you're going to greet them, and thank them for attending. Next, you're going to go to this slide, and this is where you're going to introduce them to ACTIONN and FOA. And this is important because this is where you're going to provide a power credential. A power credential is what's going to show your family members and your friends and community members that ACTIONN and FOA are legitimate organizations working towards real legitimate things. We've also been here for a while, right? We didn't just start with this campaign. We've been here and we've been working with the community and we've been building power. So feel free to read through these. This is also a message from FOA and ACTIONN. I'm going to read it to you here. So this year, for the first time ever, Action FOA have joined together to create a statewide coalition to respond to the brokenness of the systems within our state that COVID-19 and Black Lives Matter has revealed. It is time to make a decision about what we are divesting from and investing into. We plan to make that happen through a community-centered new normal platform guided by the voices and values of our community and deeply centered in the need for racial justice. Today, we want to share that platform with you. All right. Next, you're going to go to the community guidelines. So this is important too because you are going to be hosting discussions. And sometimes within discussions, you're going to run into people with different opinions, different backgrounds, different understandings of the world. And so having these community guidelines are really going to help everybody stay on the same place and abide by the same rules. So first one is step up, step back is for people who both talk a little too much and for people who talk a little not enough. And so step up means for those of you who have not been able to talk, please feel encouraged. For those of you who have been taking up a lot of space, please step back. Disagree, but don't be disagreeable. Encourage people to be honest and authentic in their engagement. Also leave space for respectful disagreement. Community and faith values. Make it clear that the conversation is not a space for political or partisan debate. It is an opportunity to build a bigger moral imagination for our community, created in shared values of compassion and justice. Remember, we are encouraging them to reimagine. And so we have to be able to respect each other's backgrounds and be able to come together and talk about what that new normal is. I also like to leave space for anyone who wants to recommend another community guideline. A lot of times people like to feel heard and have another thing that they would like to include in this. So feel free to do that. All right, the next slide is going to be who is in the room. This is where you're going to let everybody talk about themselves, talk about where they're from, the neighborhood, the conversation. I think it's also a great time for someone to take a screenshot of the event and tell everybody to smile. Make sure you ask everybody if they're okay with you posting it on social media, but take a screenshot. All right, and now it's time to go into the new normal framework. Now, you're going to notice that here it doesn't automatically go into the new normal framework. First thing we're going to do is go into the story of self. And this is really, really important. This is where you're going to talk about why you feel that the new normal is so important, why we need it based off of your life experience and things that you've done and the things that you've lost and earned and the things that have made you come to this place where you feel like you have to act. This is a really, really central part. And so for that, I'm going to show you some clips of a couple of my team members talking about why the story of self is so important and also sharing their story of self.
You can step up if you'd like me to, Denise.
I would love
it by now. Okay, I didn't prepare for this, y'all, so sorry, but I tell it enough. I could probably make it happen. So I think that I'm just really passionate about this new normal because I've seen the way that the structures of our system and society are set up have really failed my family and my community. I know for me personally, something that I'm really passionate about is mental health and disability. And I'm really passionate about that, just having grown up in poverty and how much people with mental illness or disability are treated as if they're not valued or respected within our society. I saw that firsthand with my mother, who dealt with bipolar and other mental health issues growing up, and rather than ever getting any support or help, pretty much just ended up living in poverty. There were several times growing up where she ended up being hospitalized forcefully because of her mental health issues. And rather than getting the support or care that our society should have given us, she was essentially locked up and then released with a $3,000 bill that, of course, we couldn't afford to pay, and wasn't accessible for us and just left us in more debt and more poverty. And so as we grew up, we dealt really strongly with that continued poverty and that continued worsening of poverty due to mental health and the lack of care in our society. And then as we got older, my sister ended up developing a lot of those same mental health issues. And in 2017, she took her own life. That was after she had been locked up in a mental hospital after attempting suicide the first time, where she was essentially locked in a room with blood-stained blankets for a week here in Reno with no other support. When she got out of the mental hospital, she was met with an eviction notice and had to come live with me for a little while. And this is just how our system and society treats people with mental health issues. And so for me, like, I think we desperately need like a new normal. We need a new place to exist where every single human being has value and has worth and isn't left to die, because too many people are left to die because their brains live differently. But yeah, so I like to always tell people too, like, your story of self is really your own. And I know, like, I've shared mine so many times that I'm kind of used to it by now, but like, it can be a really like difficult thing to do and can be really emotionally draining. So it's really powerful and you like shows a lot of bravery. And I just want to like let everyone know that you have like control over what your story of self is. Like, you get to choose what parts of your story you're sharing and what parts you aren't willing to share, and that's okay. Like, I'll tell you, I didn't tell you like everything in my story. And it's okay. Like, being vulnerable doesn't mean you have to share your entire self. But find that those parts that you are able to share with other people. And I think another thing also is just your story of self doesn't have to be like, it's okay if you're privileged. It's okay if you've lived a life where you haven't had those kind of struggles. Like, that's what we want for everyone. Like, we want everyone to have had that life. So what is it, if you haven't had those struggles, what is it that's brought you into this space? Why do you care about social justice if you haven't personally faced these issues? Is it your faith? Why does your faith call you to care about these things? So those are just some things to remember, I think, when putting together your story of self. And if your faith calls you to this work, it is just as valid as someone being in this work because they've been personally affected by it.
Thank you, Aria. The only thing I would add too is, as you craft your story of self, as thinking about how you're using it as a bridge back to the new normal. So you use your story as a way to say, and this is why I'm in this fight. This is why we need to take the new normal. We need to bring it to elected leaders, to decision makers, and we need their decisions to be shaped by the new normal. So I think it's a way that you get to craft your story as part of this bigger story and invite other folks in your digital party to see their story as part of this bigger story. And sometimes that takes a little bit of practice. So that's why I asked for a role play in specific in this moment. Is I think it's thinking through story of self and then thinking through how are you bridging that to connect back to this larger new normal framework and power trajectory is a really powerful thing. And it's something that you really want to be intentional about before you host the party.
Right, exactly. And this piggyback for a hot second. Keep in mind when you're having a conversation with your audience, the first thing that's going through their mind is, why the heck they telling me this? Okay, so that's why I make sure that you make that connection. All right, as far as the whys.
That I think is important to remember for these house parties is that we're asking you to invite your friends and family, right? We're asking you to invite folks that you know. And sometimes that might make you feel a little bit more comfortable, but that also can make you a little bit more nervous too about sharing your story of self, sharing something really authentic and real about you. But it truly is a gift for you to be able to share that and be like, this is why it's so important to me. This is why I brought you into this space for us to have this conversation. So Gabby had mentioned building confidence in one another is important, right? So I would definitely encourage anyone who is thinking has concerns about hosting a party or needs to think through story of self to connect with Shonda or Aria or Maria or another staff or team member from Action or FOA, just to talk through that a bit and feel really confident going in to the house party.
So as you can see, the story of self is not something you want to skip. This is an incredibly essential part. This is why they're going to be able to connect to the new normal, because these are people that you connected with. So by connecting them to the emotional parts of your story, they're going to feel connected to the new normal. All right. I did not highlight this bit because I wanted to leave you the option of whether you want to read it or whether you want to use it as a talking point. It's totally up to you. Talking about how this came about. And here it talks about how COVID-19 has revealed the brokenness and injustice of our systems and society and how we were able to get here. How we are tired of waiting and how it is time to reimagine the status quo and how it is time to lead boldly into this new normal. All right, the next one. See if I can make this a little bit bigger. Right. All right, for this next slide, it's really simple and it's going to help everybody see what we want our state to invest and divest from. And I recommend just reading it from the slide. Makes it a lot simpler. But make sure you read it with emotion because this is a really important part and it's going to show people where the values of this campaign lie. So the way that I would do it is I would read this. It is time to divest from racist and violent policing systems and practices that harm Black and brown folks. It is time to divest from mass incarceration that both marginalizes and profits off of Black and brown communities. It is time to divest from corporate tax breaks that are starving our communities of the resources we need to thrive. Same thing for the invest. And this is why it is time to invest in community-driven public safety made up of healers, peacemakers, and guardians. It is time to invest in equitable public education that supports Black, brown, and low-income communities. It is time to invest in truly affordable housing and strong tenant protection. It is time to invest in a strong and inclusive democracy that actively engages every voter. It is time to invest in a transformed immigration system rooted in respect, equity, and dignity for all immigrants and their families. I think this is also a great time to allow people to say what it is they feel about it. And then you're going to have your group discussion. And allow for this group discussion to go as long as it needs to. We have 15 minutes here, but if you need it to go longer, please do. Another thing to think about, and that also depends on if you're using a free Zoom account or if you're not, but if you have more than 10 people, feel free to break them up into different breakout groups and to give them different questions. I think that would allow for when you come back together for the discussion to be diverse and allow and have different viewpoints and different things that they talked about. You can use any of these questions. You can also make up your own and then allow them for discussion. If it needs to go over that 15 minutes again, let it, allow it. All right. And then moving on to this power trajectory. And I really don't want you to spend too much time here. The reason that we have this here is to show people that we have a plan, that there is a plan to build power and to use it in the elections and in the 2021 legislative session. Go ahead and you can just read all of these to people. If you want to memorize it, you absolutely can. But I recommend that you just read each part to them. All right. And this is super, super important. After you are done talking about the power trajectory, this is where we're going to talk about what the things that you as individuals can do to make sure that we are building power for the new normal, for the elections and for the 2021 legislative session. We need to take a moment, and just like we need to do this in everyday life, you're going to take a moment to make sure that everybody at your meeting has registered to vote and has completed the census. Go ahead and ask people. And then don't shame them if someone has said, no, I haven't. But after that, go ahead and read this if you'd like to, or talk to them about the importance of voting and participating in the census. Tell them why this is such a necessary thing, right? We are talking about building power to influence the elections and to make change in the 2021 legislative session. If we're not registered to vote, if we're not voting, if we're not getting the resources that we need from the census and the representation from the census, then that power isn't building. So please take a minute to ask everybody. All right. And this next piece is super, super important. This is where you're going to do what in organizing we call an ask. And an ask this is the part where we're going to get people involved, right? Remember that in order for this movement to be powerful, in order for us to create the change that we keep talking about and we want to see, we need to bring more people into this work. And here are a few ways that they can do that. So the parts of an effective ask are to A, establish urgency, and B, connect their emotion and that urgency to your ask. So establishing urgency means talking about this moment. We are in the midst of a pandemic. We are in the midst of the largest rise of the Black Lives Matter movement and a national outcry for change in policing and police brutality and the way that Black people. The urgency is very simple, that we have to act now. that if we don't act together and if we don't come together right now for community and systemic change and transformative change, that the status quo is going to continue and that we will not have built on this moment and that we will not have used this moment, this historical moment, to create that change. And then this is where you're going to give them the 3 asks. The 3 asks being, can you host your own digital house party? Can you register voters and increase democracy with Outvote? And will you join the social media response team? This is also when you're going to take this link, copy and paste it, put it into the chat box, send it to them however you are communicating. If you're not using Zoom, then however that may look like, but send this to them. And this is the form that is also on the original page right here. When you click on it, it'll take you to this form, very similar probably to the one that you did use to sign up for these different things. All right, in a second, we're going to have a clip of JD Klippenstein playing, and he's going to show you how he would have done an effective ask.
Usually how I would go is you just kind of want to build the ask up as like, we're at this moment where hopefully you've seen tonight, like through the stories that we shared and this discussion around the new normal and the reason that we so desperately need to divest from broken systems that are hurting our communities and invest in people, that now is the time to act. And we have a trajectory that we're headed on into the fall. And right now there are 3 things that we are asking, there are 3 ways that we are asking for you to get involved. And the first one is pretty simple. If we just want to make sure that your voter registration is up to date. We want to make sure that you and your loved ones, if you're eligible to vote, are registered to vote, that you're ready for your voice to be heard in November and when it's time to vote this fall. We also want to make sure if you haven't completed the census, that you should be completing the census, that it's time to be seen and it's time to be heard. And so those are the very first steps that we're going to invite you into as we build momentum for the new normal. And there's other steps too, as once you've done that, it's time to get the word out and to bring your family and your friends, your neighbors into that. You can host another digital Zoom party yourself. You could join our Outvote texting campaign, which is like a really easy way to text your family and friends with information about registering to vote and all the other stuff that we want to be sharing around the new normal. And the final thing is that we want to ask you to be part of our social media. So much of what we've learned during COVID-19 is what happens on social media can really influence what elected leaders and decision makers do. So we want leaders to be part of telling that story on social media. So you can join our social media response team and be working directly with some of the communication specialists on staff with ACTIONN and FOA to make sure that message is getting out there. So there's 3 things that I am asking of you tonight, and I hope that you would choose one of those 3 things. That is me spitballing an ask off the top of my head, but I think that gets there.
All right, and now that you know how to do an effective ask, we're just going to go to the rest of the PowerPoint, which is just these last 3 slides. And this is where you're going to do a social media push. This is where you're going to take a minute for everyone to post on social media. And so I'm going to explain to you why social media is so important. Not just because I'm a social media professional or that this is a big part of my job, but because in order for us to demonstrate the power that we're building in this movement, we have to put it into front of people. And during normal times, when there isn't a pandemic, maybe we would gather a bunch of people for our rally, or maybe we would do a bunch of different demonstrations and invite the media, but we can't do that, right? We have to socially distance. And so this is a really socially distant way to demonstrate the power that we're building. I like to think of this as there is a big jar that is needed to garner the attention of elected officials. And a couple of social media posts don't seem like a big deal. But if we keep adding another pebble and another rock and another stone into that bucket, eventually it's going to overflow and eventually it's going to gain the attention of elected officials. We were able to do that during the special session. During the special session, we were able to use some of the most effective hashtags, which you can use right here, being they were hashtag NBLedge and hashtag BeBoldNevada. These hashtags were so effective on Twitter that elected officials made decisions based off of the things that we were demanding at the time. Social media may not seem like the most powerful tool, may not be the most influential tool because you're not connecting people face to face. But this is how elected officials are paying attention now. And so we have to be a part of this. We have to show that power. All right. And this is where we're going to close. And this is going to allow for questions and more discussion. And as things are wrapping up and you see that people are leaving, we're going to play this last slide so that they can follow us on social media. Pro tip, as you play the slide, play some music. If you attended the August 4th event, you saw that we had a lot of fun and we got a boogie on at the very end, and it just left everybody with this amazing feeling and people felt even more empowered. I don't know what it is about the power of magic, or power of music, but this is something that I really love to see. All right. We're going to head back to the toolkit. So after you have done your digital house party, here are a few things that you should mark off your checklist. One, make sure that you go to social media. I know that I just emphasized, but I'm going to emphasize it again. If we don't put the power that we're building in front of elected officials and in front of appointed officials and in front of all these candidates, then they don't see that we are gaining more people, that we are bringing people into this work, that we are collectively reimagining the new normal. Make sure it's on social media. Within a week, make sure that you debrief with your ACTIONN or FOA organizer and talk about next steps. All right. And then for your follow-up, we can't just have a digital house party and then end it there. The people that you brought into there, I want you to realize that these are the people that you need to have more discussions with. The first discussion is always going to be the hardest one, and you really broke that ice and allowed them to see that we can collectively reimagine a new normal. But we have to keep talking to them. Reach out to them, send them a text, send them an email, send them whatever, saying thank you for attending. Invite them into ACTIONN or FOA's next event or one-on-one, or have a one-on-one with an organizer. Ask if they'd be interested in hosting their own digital house party. If you would like to know who signed up to do a digital house party or any of the other asks, you can just reach out to your organizer and they should be able to tell you. And for those who said that they didn't want to, very gently and appropriately, ask them again during the follow-up. Get some help by asking someone who attended the party to help with follow-up calls. This is another way to bring and engage people. You're going to find people who are extremely interested, who are ready to jump on. Make sure that you are doing the extra follow-up with them. Make sure that you're inviting them to do the follow-up, and make sure you're connecting them to action. All right, and that is the end of the training. Please know that your organizers are here to answer any questions that you have. If you need anything, please reach out to them, and they would gladly talk to you about how to help you make your digital house party the most effective that it can be.
So I would just add that I encourage everyone to personalize your digital house party. The content is something that has to be present, but you can make this like your own house party. So if you like starting off with music, start off with some music. If you want to, I don't know, have everybody wear pajamas to it, just whatever makes it your house party and something that you feel really proud of and excited about, then do that. Just make sure that you make the content information a core piece of it.